Hi, I'm here with Leslie Poole, who is a candidate for District 7, Austin City Council. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brandy, for having me.
Absolutely. So you are in a competitive race. Please tell me why you are the best candidate for District 7.
Well, I've lived in Austin for 34 years, and during that time I've been deeply involved in my community. I started off in community groups, singing with a community choir. And I had a daughter in 1988, and I got involved in the schools, and I worked on PTA and on Girl Scouts. I was a troop leader. And all this time I was watching and paying attention, reading the newspaper, what was happening in Austin. And I was part of the Save Our Springs initiative. We circulated petitions and got the signatures and went to City Council and passed that big initiative. I worked on a number of campaigns and over time got involved with city boards and commissions. And Councilmember Beverly Griffith put me on my first commission. She appointed me to the Arts Commission. I had been a music panelist for the Arts Commission, and what we did was approve cultural contracts to take programs into schools and to underserved parts of the city, and also to support our local musicians and artists. From there, as a representative to the Arts Commission, I sat for a time on the Downtown Commission, representing the arts community on the Downtown Commission. And then I moved over to the Telecommunications Commission, where I was chair. And there we, again, were addressing underserved parts of town, and this had to do with access to the internet. Okay. So this was late 90s, early 2000s, where we were at that time laying fiber and really recognizing that the tool that is the internet needed to be easily accessible and free to everybody. Okay. From there I went to the Water Wastewater Commission, and that was a difficult assignment. We were confronted with water treatment plant 4. Right. And I opposed that, the building of that huge infrastructure project, and still believe it was the wrong course. Right. And as we know now, the people who at the city who supported and said we needed to build it are now saying their estimates were wrong, and they also wish we hadn't done that. Right.
So let's start with water. Moving forward. Sure. Plant is built. What do we need to be doing to build the infrastructure or maintain the infrastructure that will get us into a future with more people arriving and less water in the lakes?
Well, there's two things. One, we need to slow down our recruitment of people to come into town. I liken it to drinking out of a fire hose. We can't keep up, and it's unsustainable. And I'm really strong on sustainability and managed proper intentional growth. The second thing is we need to continue with our conservation efforts. When Water Treatment Plant 4, the first estimates, the staff told us that we would need about 600 MGDs of water. We are only consuming 175 now a year, MGDs, I guess it's a day. Anyway, the number is low. And the Water Treatment Plant 4 would bring 335 on. So even though they scaled back the size of it, it's still, the capacity is still way more than we need now.
Okay, so what other tools for conservation or reuse or other things do we need to be implementing?
Aside from conservation, the LCRA is looking at building another reservoir south of Austin that would help to provide water to downstream users, and then that would allow us to more specifically draw from the lakes that we're drawing from here. So that will help. But I really think looking at our how we landscape. And again, I use the word intentional. It has to be very intentional how we use the water. I'd like to see purple pipe available so that, and it is in some parts of the city, but I'd like to be able to capture and reuse the water out of like a sink or a shower.
Gray water?
Yeah, gray water. And we do capture the runoff from our roof. We've got a 600-gallon barrel off the side of our house. Great. And the other thing about it is it's much better water for your vegetables and your yard than anything coming out of the tap.
Right, right. Okay, let's shift to energy.
All right.
We're setting some ambitious goals at Austin Energy. What do you believe about the future of the management as well as the sources of energy that we should be emphasizing?
I'd like to see us divest ourselves of the South Texas Nuclear Project, or the STP. I would like to see us rid ourselves of the dirty coal burning plants that are in Fayette and the gas-fired plant that's in Decker. There are some contract contingencies with Fayette that we would have to work out, so it's not as simple, but I think with the focus of the new council on doing that, I think we would find a path forward. As far as energy, absolutely every alternative fuel that we can find, the West Texas wind, the West Texas solar, and the coastal wind and distributed solar. I was talking with a friend the other day about how we could put more solar panels up. There's the Weberville plant that I guess is over some green space. There are some light industrial areas in town where you have a lot of rooftop that would not be otherwise in a green area, and we could maybe make better use of those sorts of construction. And also our schools, talk with the school district about putting solar on the roof and maybe reduce the amount of energy that they use there.
Great. And this ties to climate change, which we all agree is a critical issue. What are some other things you think we need to do to help reach our goals of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050?
Well, that goes to more electric cars and alternative fuel vehicles. I ride a bike. I'm not always able to ride to work. I don't have a shower facility to clean up when I'm done. But when I did, when I was with the National Wildlife Federation, I rode my bike to work every day and home. So there are a lot of other ways to get around town other than using our cars. I'd like to see our streetscapes much more friendly, and so people can walk more places, have town centers where it's close to homes, and we don't have to go too far to get all the different things that we need.
Right.
I think that would also build a bigger and broader sense of community in Austin.
So you're touching on how we move about transportation solutions. Where do we need to be focusing? There's some big proposition on the ballot, and not a lot of support for it out there, including So what should we be doing?
Well, first I should tell you that I like rail. And I ride it. I ride it in New York City and in Seattle and Portland, and I really had high hopes for rail here, and I voted for it in 2000 when we had that bond on the ballot, and I think it was only $25 million back then. So here we have this massive plan that was put together with a route that doesn't seem to take people where they want to go. And when I talk to residents around the city, and I've talked to them in my district and elsewhere, they say it's just costs too much and it's not taking me where I want to go.
So what do we do instead? What do we have to emphasize?
Today I had a really great conversation with a young woman in her early 30s, and she rides the bus. And she would ride the bus more. She doesn't have a car and she doesn't want one. She also doesn't want a bicycle, which is interesting. She likes to walk or ride the bus. She said the problem what she would do to improve Cap Metro is have the buses run more frequently, later at night, like until 2 in the morning, and have the stops in more convenient locations. She doesn't mind taking a transfer. She doesn't want to do more than one transfer, so she's willing to take 2 lines to get where she wants to go. But if she has to walk more than a quarter mile to get to anywhere, to get to the new station, that tends to discourage the use, and so she'll either not go or stay home. Okay, so transportation ties very closely to land use. Land use planning. We've got the new Imagine Austin plan, and that's supposed to inform Code Next, the evolution of our land development code. Do you think that's headed the right direction? Do you support it? Do you think it should be a little different? Where do you see? Well, when I first got in the race, I pulled up all of the neighborhood plans for the neighborhoods in District 7. Started reading them, and they are very similar in their vision and even in the wording. The future land use maps, the vision of the stakeholder neighbors that they put together over the last 10 years. Some of them were more recent, some of them older, like back to 2002. Very similar. It's very clear. Very similar to Imagine Austin, or very similar to each other? To each other, very similar to each other. And so they're very clear on how they view their community. And what we need to be aware of with the writing of Code Next and the adoption of it is those plans deserve respect, and they should be reflected in the code, because that will codifies those plans, and we have to be very careful that we take that input and don't leave it on a shelf. There are a lot of folks feel like they're spending, and I've been to the stakeholder meetings, so I know how that process works. And it does feel like there is a separation between all the energy and the time and the good thinking that the neighborhood brings to the program then they go away and staff takes it and puts it together, and then the next thing they know, they either can't find their input anywhere or they read something that I don't remember saying that kind of thing.
Right.
So I think we need to have a more specific alignment between what the neighbors are saying, and they're very clear in what they
Right.
want.
Do you think that what the neighbors are saying is going to get us where we need to go in terms of land use patterns and development that can be sustainable?
I do.
You
I
do?
do. I
Okay.
think that, and our town evolves. You know, the way we were in the 1950s, we were very much looking to suburbanize.
Right.
And there are still some neighborhoods that were the suburbs back in the
Right.
1950s. I live in Rosedale. We have short front. The frontage is like 70 to 50 feet.
Right.
But it goes back deeper, and then you go north of Koenig, and you've got the much wider
Right.
frontages there. So clearly our town evolves, and we,
Sure.
as a people, we affect the growth patterns, and we stay involved, and we're clearly focused, and we speak about from our hearts about how we see
Right.
our neighborhoods developing, and I trust that.
Okay. One of your top 3 priorities, you said, has to do with materials management and our landfills and the zero waste master plan. Say more about like what you want to provide in terms of leadership on that.
Well, the reduce, reuse, repurpose, I think we can do more. We can certainly expand our recyclables. Those milk cartons, we need to add them to the stream. And I know that Resource Recovery is working on that. I support their efforts to reduce the amount of trash that's going to the landfill. I happen to compost, and we take our from the kitchen and put it in the backyard, and we make this lovely soil that we then put in our vegetable garden, and so we have a really healthy ecosystem going there. And I would like to see the composting, I'd like to see the results of that pilot, and I'd like to see that expanded.
Okay.
They seem like small efforts, but in reality they really, really make a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And in closing, if you could accomplish one thing as a council member and you knew you couldn't fail, what
Right.
would you take on?
I thought about this for a while because you had indicated that you may ask a question along these lines, and I decided I would try to heal the planet and the people on it. For me, that means our seas being abundant again, and the air being clean, and that the kids don't have asthma attacks, and we don't have diesel fuel and coming out of the pipes and the exhaust pipes. That our trees are protected, and the fire doesn't, we don't have big forest fires, and I'd like to reverse, that would then reverse climate change. I would really, really like to see us back to a healthy planet, and that the people who are in vulnerable situations and our vulnerable communities, that they have the things that they need in order to live a healthy, productive life. If I had one thing that I could wish, it would be to heal the planet and the people.
What would that look like locally? Like, what's a policy thing you could forward that would really help make that happen?
Well, I think we push forward on our net zero on the recycling and the resource recovery. And I was reading yesterday that in New York City, Mayor de Blasio has announced 80% carbon emission reduction by 2050. 80 by 50 is the plan. And I would like to see Austin think bigger in these ways, and especially as we're looking at desertification and our lack of water. My greatest fear is that we run out of water. So I really want us to focus very intentionally and deliberately on turning the tide on that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for your vision and for your leadership and
Thank you,
for being willing to
Brandy.
run. Thanks
Oh,
for
you
being
bet.
here.
Thank you so much.